18 months ago, Victoria James was publicly rejected on her wedding day for being too fat, too black, and not good enough. Today, she was married to one of the most feared men in Seoul, and that terrified her more than the rejection ever did. Victoria stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the Seoul Community Center. The emerald ring on her finger, worth more than her old life in Boston, felt ice cold against her skin. She looked powerful. She looked untouchable. She looked like a woman who had won. But victories built on secrets never last. Her phone buzzed. Patrick, the man who had refused to marry her, the man who had replaced her at the altar. "I still love you," the message read. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." She deleted it instantly. Patrick didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the truth she had been hiding for 3 weeks, a truth that, if Kang Ji-won ever discovered it, wouldn't end in divorce. It would end in blood. Before the story continues, let me say this. If these stories comfort you, entertain you, or make you feel understood, please subscribe. It's free, but it means everything to this channel. Now, let's continue. Victoria had been working late at the Kang Enterprises office, reviewing contracts for their community center expansion. Ji-won was in Tokyo on business. Mio and Dae-hyun were managing the restaurants. She was alone. That's when she found the file. It had been misfiled in a stack of invoices, a leather portfolio marked Confidential, Family Holdings. Victoria almost returned it without looking. Almost. But something made her open it. Inside were documents, legal documents, financial records, and photographs. Photographs of her. From the airport the day she'd arrived, clear, high-resolution surveillance photos taken from multiple angles, time-stamped, professionally shot. Her hands shook as she flipped through the file. Subject: Victoria James. Status: acquired. Purpose: personal project. Ji-won. Notes: emotional vulnerability confirmed. Background check complete. No family ties. Minimal financial resources. Recent public humiliation. Assessment: ideal candidate for rehabilitation project. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She kept reading, each page worse than the last. There were psychological profiles, analysis of her social media posts from the months before Boston, detailed notes about her relationship with Patrick, her insecurities, her financial struggles. They'd known everything about her before Ji-won ever approached her at that airport. It hadn't been chance. It hadn't been fate. It had been calculated. A document near the back made her stomach turn. Project Victoria. Timeline and objectives. Month 1 to 3. Established dependency. Housing, employment, financial stability. Month 4 to 6. Develop emotional attachment, personal attention, validation, romance. Month 7 to 9. Secure commitment, marriage proposal, legal binding. Month 10 to 12. Complete integration into the family business operations. There was more. Notes about using her natural empathy and people skills to help legitimize their business transitions. About how her American background and diverse appearance would help with international relations. About how her gratitude would ensure loyalty. At the bottom of the file, in Ji-won's handwriting, Father always said the best investments are the ones who don't know they're being bought. Victoria needed saving. I needed someone genuine to rehabilitate the family image. Perfect symmetry. Victoria had vomited in the office trash can. Then she'd carefully photographed every page, returned the file exactly where she'd found it, and walked home in a daze. For 3 weeks she'd said nothing, smiled at Ji-won when he returned from Tokyo, attended events, worked on the community center, and planned. Because Victoria James wasn't the broken woman they thought they'd saved anymore. She was something far more dangerous. She was a woman who'd learned exactly how their world worked. "Victoria, there you are." Ji-won appeared beside her, his hand automatically moving to her lower back. The touch that once made her feel safe now made her skin crawl. "The community center is incredible. You should be proud." "We should be proud," she corrected automatically, the perfect wife. His eyes softened. "I'm proud of you every day." "You're proud of your investment, your rehabilitation project," she thought. "Ji-won, we need to talk, tonight, after the event." Something flickered in his expression. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine, She smiled and it felt like acid. "I have something important to discuss." Before he could respond, Dae-hyun rushed over. "We have a problem. Mr. Choi is here." Ji-won's expression darkened. "I specifically didn't invite him. He came anyway, and he brought reporters." Victoria's mind raced. Mr. Choi, the business rival who'd harassed her at the gala, the one Ji-won had threatened to destroy. An idea formed. Dangerous. Perfect. "Let me handle him," Victoria said. "Absolutely not," Ji-won said immediately. "After what he did? That's exactly why I should handle him." Victoria met his eyes. "You said I was good at reading people, at managing difficult situations. Trust me." She could see him weighing it, saw the moment he decided to let his investment prove her worth. "Fine, but I'm watching." Victoria found Mr. Choi holding court with reporters near the entrance, loudly questioning the community center's true purposes. "Mr. Choi," she said warmly, approaching with her hand extended. "What a surprise to see you here." He looked at her with barely concealed contempt. "Mrs. Kang, I was just explaining to these journalists how interesting it is that the Kang family suddenly cares about community welfare." "Is it interesting?" Victoria smiled. "I find it completely natural. People change, businesses evolve. Or do you believe people are incapable of growth? I believe leopards don't change their spots. How lucky for humanity that we're not leopards." Victoria turned to the reporters. "Mr. Choi raises a good point, though. People should question charitable motives. That's why all of our community centers' finances are completely transparent. Every donation, every expense, every program, all available for public audit." She could see Ji-won tensing in her peripheral vision. They'd never discussed making the finances public. "In fact," Victoria continued, her heart pounding, "I'm announcing today that the community center will operate as an independent nonprofit with an external board of directors. The Kang family will provide funding, but we won't control operations. Because this isn't about business, it's about community." Mr. Choi's eyes narrowed. Very convenient timing for this announcement. "Not convenient, necessary." Victoria's smile never wavered. "Because people like you will always question our motives, so we're removing any reason for doubt." The reporters were eating it up, cameras flashing. Mr. Choi looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. "If you'll excuse me," Victoria said graciously, "I have a community to serve." She walked away with her head high, aware of Ji-won's shocked stare burning into her back. She'd just made a major decision about their business without consulting him. The perfect, grateful wife would never do that. But Victoria was done being perfect. The confrontation came that night in the penthouse that once felt like sanctuary. "What was that today?" Ji-won demanded the moment they walked through the door. His controlled facade had cracked. "You made a unilateral decision about our business in front of reporters." "Our business?" Victoria set down her purse carefully. "I was under the impression the community center was mine to manage." "It is, but major decisions—" "Need your approval?" Victoria turned to face him. "Like hiring me needed your approval. Like moving to Seoul needed your approval. Like marrying you needed your approval." Ji-won's eyes narrowed. "What's going on, Victoria? Tell me something." She moved to the window, looking out at the Seoul skyline. "When did you decide? When did you see me at that airport and think, there's my rehabilitation project?" The silence behind her was deafening. "Victoria!" Don't. She turned around and she knew her expression must be terrifying because Jiwon actually stepped back. Don't lie to me. Not now. I found the file 3 weeks ago. I've seen everything. The surveillance photos, the psychological profiles, the timeline. All of it. His face went pale. You weren't supposed to. I wasn't supposed to know that you studied me like a lab rat before you ever said hello, that you analyzed my vulnerabilities and planned exactly how to make me dependent on you. Her voice rose. I wasn't supposed to know that our entire relationship was a business strategy. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Ji-won? Tears were streaming down her face now. Explain to me how Project Victoria was anything other than manipulation. At first, Ji-won said quietly, yes, at first it was strategic. My family needed legitimacy. You needed help. It seemed like perfect symmetry. I'm not finished. He moved closer, and Victoria forced herself not to retreat. At first, yes, I saw you as an opportunity, a woman who'd been hurt, who would be grateful for rescue, who had the skills and background we needed. I won't lie about that. How noble of you. But then I got to know you, Victoria, the real you, your strength, your kindness, your absolutely terrible Korean pronunciation that you kept working on anyway, the way you cried during sad commercials but stayed stone-faced during actual crises, the way you saw the best in people even after Patrick showed you the worst. He reached for her hands, but she pulled away. I fell in love with you, Victoria, really in love, not with the project or the investment or the strategic asset, with you. How would I know the difference? Victoria's voice broke. How would I ever know if your love is real or just the next phase of your plan? Because I'm telling you the truth now. You're telling me because I found out. If I hadn't found that file, would you have ever told me? The pause was answer enough. Victoria walked to the bedroom and emerged with a suitcase, the same battered suitcase from the airport, now repaired. What are you doing? Ji-won's voice was panicked now. I'm leaving. Victoria, please. You know what the worst part is? She looked at him, really looked at him. I actually loved you. The man I thought you were, I loved him so much. But he never existed, did he? He was just another role you were playing. That's not true. Then prove it. Victoria picked up her suitcase. Let me go. No lawyers, no manipulation, no business pressure. If you really love me, let me choose for myself without your interference. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. Victoria walked to the door, each step feeling like her heart was tearing in two, because despite everything, despite the lies and manipulation, part of her still loved him, still wanted to believe his feelings were real, but she'd learned her lesson with Patrick. Love that requires you to be grateful, to be saved, to be anything other than yourself. That's not love. That's ownership. Victoria! Ji-won's voice stopped her at the door. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You deserved better than what I did. Better than the lies. She didn't turn around. Yes, I did. And then she left. The cheap motel room in Gangnam was a far cry from the penthouse. Thin walls, a lumpy bed, a bathroom the size of a closet. It was perfect. Victoria sat on the bed and finally let herself break down. She cried for the man she'd thought Ji-won was. She cried for her own naivety in falling for another man's manipulation. She cried for the life she'd built that turned out to be another illusion. But this time, something was different. This time, she wasn't broken. She was angry. Her phone buzzed constantly. Ji-won, Mio, Daehyun, all calling. She ignored them. Instead, she opened her laptop and started working. because Victoria James had learned something in the past 18 months. She'd learned how Korean business worked. She'd learned about contracts and negotiations and exactly where the Kong family's vulnerabilities were, and she was going to use every bit of that knowledge. Not for revenge, for justice. By morning, she'd drafted a comprehensive proposal. By noon, she'd secured a meeting. By evening, everything was in motion. Victoria James was about to show Seoul exactly what a woman who'd been underestimated could do. The press conference was packed. Victoria stood at the podium in a stunning navy suit that she'd bought with her own money she'd been secretly saving for months. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Victoria James, and I have an announcement to make." Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward. "I am resigning from my position at Kong Enterprises, effective immediately. I am also filing for divorce from Kong Ji-won." The room erupted. Victoria waited calmly for silence. "However, I am not leaving Seoul. Instead, I'm launching my own organization, Bridge International. We will provide the same services I developed at the Kong Community Center, but with complete independence and transparency." She pulled up a slide. "I've already secured funding from international investors who believe in ethical community development. We'll offer job training, language classes, mental health services, and business mentorship to Seoul's international community and underserved neighborhoods." Another slide. "Furthermore, I'm establishing the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit supporting women who are recovering from toxic relationships, financial abuse, and public humiliation, because I know exactly what that feels like." The reporters were frantically taking notes. "I want to be clear, I don't regret my time with the Kong family. They gave me opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. But I've learned that depending on someone else's rescue leads to a different kind of prison." Victoria looked directly at the camera. "To anyone watching who's been hurt, used, or made to feel like they need saving, you don't. You need support, resources, and opportunities, but you don't need a savior. You need to save yourself." "Mrs. Kong," a reporter called out. "Miss James," Victoria corrected. "I'm reclaiming my name. Is it true that your marriage was arranged as a business strategy?" Victoria smiled. "My marriage was complicated, but that's between me and Mr. Kong. What matters now is moving forward. Do you still love him?" The pause hit like a physical blow. Victoria paused, considering. "I loved who I thought he was. Whether that person ever existed, I'm not sure. But I've learned that love without honesty isn't love. It's manipulation wearing love's mask." Ji-won watched the press conference from his office, his brothers silent beside him. "She's destroying us," Dae-hyun said quietly. "The press is already spinning this as confirmation that we manipulated her." "Because we did," Ji-won said flatly. "You did," Mio corrected. "We told you this was a bad idea from the start." "I know. So what do we do?" Dae-hyun asked. Ji-won kept watching Victoria on the screen. She looked powerful, confident, free. She looked like she didn't need him anymore. "We let her go," he said quietly. "We give her everything she's asking for. Clean divorce, no strings, no lawyers trying to claim community property. Everything." "Ji-won, she's right." He finally looked at his brothers. "Father taught us to see people as assets, to calculate their value and acquire them strategically. I thought I was different from him, but I did exactly what he would have done." "You fell in love," Mio said gently. "Afterwards. After the manipulation, after the calculated approach, after treating her like a problem to solve instead of a person to know." Ji-won's jaw tightened. "She deserves better than that. Better than me." "What are you going to do?" Dae-hyun asked. "I'm going to prove that she was right to leave. And then," Ji-won looked back at the screen, Maybe someday she'll believe I really did love her. Bridge International was thriving. Victoria had secured office space in Taiwan, hired a small staff, and was already serving over 200 clients. The Second Chances Foundation had helped 15 women leave toxic situations. She worked 14-hour days. She barely slept. She threw herself into building something real, something that was truly hers. And she tried not to think about Jiwon. She failed constantly. Victoria? Her assistant, Minji, poked her head in. Someone's here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? She says her name is Amanda Marcus. Victoria's blood went cold. Patrick's wife. Send her in. The woman who entered was nothing like Victoria expected. Amanda was small, slim, professionally dressed, everything Patrick had said he wanted, but her eyes were red from crying, and her hands shook. Miss James, I know you have no reason to help me, but I didn't know where else to go. Victoria gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me what's wrong. Amanda collapsed into the chair. I'm pregnant, and Patrick, he's asking me to get an abortion. What? He says a baby will hurt my career trajectory, that clients prefer young, childless executives. He says, she wiped her eyes, he says I'm not as valuable if I'm a mother. Victoria felt fury rising in her chest. Same Patrick, same manipulation, different victim. What do you want to do? Victoria asked gently. I want to keep my baby, but if I do, Patrick will divorce me. And I signed a prenup that gives me almost nothing. I'll have no money, no job. He made me quit to be his full-time wife, and nowhere to go. Why did you come to me? Amanda looked up, tears streaming down her face. Because I've been reading about your foundation, about the Second Chances program, and because, she took a shaky breath, because when I married Patrick, I found your things, letters you'd written him, photos. I read them all. Victoria's stomach clenched. You loved him so much. You would have done anything for him, and he threw you away like you meant nothing. I thought I was different, that he'd really loved me. But he didn't love either of us, did he? He just loved the idea of us. No, Victoria said quietly. He loved the idea of himself with us. There's a difference. I'm so sorry, Amanda sobbed. I'm so sorry for what he did to you. I'm so sorry I was part of your humiliation. I didn't think it wasn't your fault. Victoria moved around the desk and knelt beside Amanda's chair. You didn't humiliate me. Patrick did that all by himself, and now he's doing it to you. Will you help me? Amanda's voice was small. Please? Victoria thought about karma and revenge, and how satisfying it would be to refuse. Then she thought about the woman she had become, the woman who built bridges instead of walls. Yes, she said, I'll help you. Helping Amanda turned into a full-scale operation. Victoria connected her with the best divorce lawyer in Seoul, who happened to be a woman who despised men like Patrick. She arranged temporary housing through the Second Chances Foundation. She helped Amanda file for divorce and document every instance of financial abuse and manipulation. And she helped Amanda find her voice. You're stronger than you think, Victoria told her during one of their meetings. Patrick made you believe you needed him, but you never did. It makes it sound easy. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Victoria smiled. But you know what? Every day you choose yourself, it gets a little easier. Working with Amanda also brought unexpected clarity. Victoria realized that she wasn't angry at Amanda anymore. She was angry at herself for staying with Patrick for so long, for ignoring the red flags, for believing love meant accepting less than she deserved. But she was learning to forgive herself for that too. Can I ask you something? Amanda said one day. The Korean man, the one you married, do you still love him? Victoria considered the question. I don't know. Part of me will probably always love who I thought he was, but I'm learning that loving someone and staying with someone are different choices. Do you think he really loved you? I think he thought he did. Maybe he even did in his own way, but he loved himself more. And I deserve someone who loves me as much as I love them. Do you think you'll find that? Victoria smiled. I think I already did. I learned to love myself. Everything else is just bonus. 6 months after leaving, Victoria was reviewing grant applications when Minji burst into her office with her phone in hand. Victoria, you need to see this. It was a news broadcast. Jiwon was holding a press conference to announce the restructuring of all Kong family businesses, he was saying. Effective immediately, we are converting our holdings into a fully transparent corporate structure with independent boards and external auditing. Victoria leaned closer to the screen. Furthermore, I'm personally funding the establishment of the Ethical Business Initiative, a watchdog organization that will monitor companies for exploitative practices, manipulation, and abuse of power. Jiwon looked directly at the camera. Someone recently taught me that power without accountability is just control. I'm working to change that. Additionally, the Kong family is establishing a $10 million fund for Bridge International and the Second Chances Foundation. No strings attached, no board seats, no control, no involvement whatsoever. Because these organizations are doing the work that matters, and they deserve support without interference. The reporters went wild with questions. Is this because of your divorce with Victoria James? Jiwon's expression flickered. This is because my ex-wife taught me what integrity actually looks like. She taught me that real strength isn't taking control, it's giving it up when you know someone else can do better. Do you still love her? That's not relevant. What's relevant is that she deserves support for her incredible work. What she's built is remarkable, and I'm honored to help fund it even from a distance. The broadcast ended. Victoria sat in stunned silence. That's huge, Minji breathed. $10 million? Victoria, we could expand to 3 more neighborhoods. We could hire full-time counselors. We could... Give me a minute, Victoria said quietly. When Minji left, Victoria let herself feel everything. Shock, confusion, hope, fear. Because this changed things. This changed everything. She showed up at the Kang building unannounced 3 days later. The receptionist's eyes went wide. Miss James, I'll let Mr. Kang know. Don't. I'll find him myself. Victoria rode the elevator to the top floor, her heart hammering. She didn't know what she was going to say, didn't know if this was foolish or necessary or both. She just knew she needed to see him. Jiwon was in his office, reviewing documents. He looked thinner, tired. When he looked up and saw her, every emotion crossed his face at once. Jiwon. Hi. They stared at each other for a long moment. I saw your press conference, Victoria said finally. And thank you for the funding, for respecting my boundaries, for actually listening. Jiwon stood but kept his distance. You were right about everything. I did manipulate you. I did treat you like a project, and I'm sorrier than I can ever express. I know. I've been working with a therapist, dealing with my control issues, my father's legacy, my tendency to see people as problems to solve instead of humans to know. He smiled bitterly. Turns out I have a lot of work to do. Victoria took a step closer. We all do. I don't expect forgiveness, Victoria. I don't expect anything. I just want you to know that loving you, really loving you, taught me how to be better, even if I lost you in the process. What if you didn't? Jiwon froze. What? Victoria took another step. What if you didn't lose me? What if, instead, we started over? Victoria! Not like before, she said quickly. No rescue fantasy, no power imbalance, no manipulation. Just 2 people who heard each other, learned from it, and want to try again. You can trust me again, after everything? I don't know, Victoria admitted. Trust isn't automatic. You'd have to earn it. Day by day, choice by choice, and it might take years, or forever, or it might never fully come back. Then why would you try? Because I've spent the last 6 months building a life I'm proud of. I've helped women find their strength. I've created something meaningful. I've learned to love myself. She smiled, and somewhere in all that, I realized something. What? I still love you too. Not who I thought you were, the real you, flawed and controlling and trying to be better. I love that you're actually doing the work instead of just apologizing. I love that you let me go when I needed to go. Victoria stepped close enough to touch him now. But if we do this, we do it differently. Equal partners, complete honesty, and the moment you try to control or manipulate me again, I'm gone. No second chances after this. I understand. Ji-won reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently. I love you, Victoria James. Not the project, not the investment, not what you can do for me. Just you, exactly as you are. Prove it, she whispered. How? Date me. Court me. Get to know me like you should have from the beginning. And let me get to know the real you. Not the smooth businessman or the dangerous mafia boss, but the person underneath. Ji-won smiled and it reached his eyes for the first time in months. I can do that. And Ji-won? Victoria pulled back slightly. I'm keeping my own apartment, my own business, my own identity. If we do this, it's because we want to be together, not because we need to be. I wouldn't want it any other way. Their first kiss after 6 months apart was different from any kiss before. No desperation, no rescue fantasy, no power games. Just two broken people who'd learned to heal themselves, choosing to build something new together. Victoria stood in the community center, not the Kang Center, but the new Bridge International location in Hongdae, and watched as Amanda cut the ribbon. This center is proof, Amanda said to the gathered crowd, her baby daughter in a carrier on her chest, that our worst moments don't define us. Our response to them does. Applause erupted. Victoria blinked back tears. Ji-won squeezed her hand. They'd been dating for almost a year now, taking it slow, building trust brick by brick. Some days were easy. Some days Victoria still saw shadows of his controlling nature and had to walk away until he checked himself. But they were learning, together. Proud of her? Ji-won asked. So proud. Amanda had divorced Patrick, gotten full custody, and was now studying social work part-time while working at Bridge International. Patrick, meanwhile, was facing professional consequences for his pattern of manipulative behavior. Multiple women had come forward with similar stories. Karma, Victoria had learned, didn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looked like accountability. Victoria? A familiar voice called. She turned to see a young black woman in her early 20s, hesitant, hopeful. Hi, I'm Jasmine. I just moved to Seoul last week. My boyfriend back home, he said some really terrible things when I told him I was leaving, and I've been struggling with whether I made the right choice. Victoria's heart squeezed. She saw herself in this girl's eyes. Then I saw your TED Talk about choosing yourself even when it's hard, about building a life on your own terms, and I realized I did make the right choice. I just wanted to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Victoria said gently. You did the hard part. You chose yourself. Can I? Jasmine hesitated. Can I hug you? Victoria opened her arms, and as this young woman, this stranger who saw her own strength reflected back, Victoria understood something profound. She hadn't just saved herself, she'd lit a path for others. That night, in her apartment, her own apartment that she paid for with money she earned, Victoria sat with Ji-won on her modest couch. Marry me, he said suddenly. Victoria laughed. We've been through this. I'm not ready. I know. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you to marry me someday, when you're ready, if you're ever ready. I'm asking for permission to keep showing up, keep earning your trust, keep proving that I'm worth the risk. That's not a proposal, that's a promise. Exactly. Victoria looked at this man, flawed, recovering from his own trauma, working every day to be better. She thought about where she'd been 2 years ago, broken, humiliated, convinced she was unlovable. She thought about where she was now, strong, successful, surrounded by people she'd helped and who'd helped her. Ask me again in a year, she said. And then? And then we'll see. Because I'm not making any promises except this one. I promise to keep choosing myself first. If you can accept that, if you can love me while I do that, then maybe we have a shot. Ji-won smiled. I can accept that. You choosing yourself is what made me love you in the first place. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the Seoul lights through her window. You know what Patrick's email said today? Victoria said suddenly. He's still emailing? Last one, he promised. He said he finally understood what he lost, that seeing me now, successful, happy, free, made him realize I was always extraordinary. What did you say? Nothing, Victoria smiled. I blocked his email, because I don't need his validation anymore. I don't need anyone's validation except my own. That's my girl. Not yours, Victoria corrected gently. Mine. I belong to myself. You're right. Ji-won kissed her forehead. But am I yours? Victoria pretended to think about it. You're on probation. Check back in a year. They both laughed, and it felt like healing. Victoria James stood at the front of a packed auditorium at Seoul National University, looking out at hundreds of faces. When I first came to Seoul, I was running from humiliation, from a man who said I wasn't good enough, from a life that had shattered around me. She paused, letting the silence settle. I thought distance would save me. I was wrong, because you can't run from yourself, no matter how far you go. She clicked to the next slide, a photo of herself from that first day at the airport, tear-stained and broken. This was me 3 years ago. I had $43, a broken suitcase, and a broken heart. I had no job, no plan, no idea what came next. Next slide, Victoria at the community center ribbon cutting, confident and radiant. This is me now. I run 2 successful nonprofits. I've helped hundreds of people rebuild their lives. I've learned to speak Korean. Not well, but I try. The audience laughed. And I've learned the most important lesson of all. She looked directly at the students. You can't build a life on someone else's foundation. You can't find yourself in someone else's validation. The only person who can save you is you. After the lecture, students lined up to ask questions. Ji-won waited in the back, patient as always. They'd gotten engaged 6 months ago. The wedding was planned for next spring, but Victoria had insisted on keeping her name, her apartment, though she mostly stayed at his place now, and her complete independence. And Ji-won had agreed to all of it, because he'd learned that love isn't about ownership, it's about partnership. Ready? He asked when the last student left. Ready? As they walked out into the Seoul evening, Victoria's phone buzzed. An email from a foundation in New York. They wanted to bring Bridge International to the United States. Big news? Ji-won asked, reading her expression. Huge news. They want to franchise the Bridge model in New York, Boston, and L.A. Boston, Ji-won said carefully. How do you feel about that? Victoria thought about it. About the city where she'd been humiliated, about Patrick and Amanda and everything that had happened there. I feel like it's time to go back. Not running away this time, walking in, on my terms. Want company? She squeezed his hand. Always. The building in downtown Boston was nothing like the cramped spaces Bridge International had started with in Seoul. It was a restored brownstone with tall windows, hardwood floors, and enough space for classrooms, counseling rooms, and a community kitchen. Victoria stood in the empty main room, remembering the last time she'd been in Boston. Broken, humiliated, running. Victoria James? She turned to find a young woman in the doorway. Late 20s, plus-sized, black, nervous. Yes? I'm Keisha. I have an appointment? The woman clutched a folder to her chest. I saw your interview in the Globe about the new center, about second chances. Victoria's heart squeezed. She saw herself in this woman's eyes, the fear, the hope, the desperation. Come in, tell me your story. Keisha sat down, hands shaking. My ex-husband, he controlled everything. The money, where I went, who I saw. He said I was too fat, too loud, too black for his corporate world, that I embarrassed him. Victoria felt rage building. The familiar story, different details. When I finally left, I had nothing. No job references because he made me quit working, no savings because everything was in his name, and everyone kept asking why I stayed so long, like it was my fault. It wasn't your fault, Victoria said firmly. You survived. That took incredible strength. I don't feel strong. I feel stupid. I felt stupid too. Victoria leaned forward. 3 years ago, my fiancé left me at our wedding for another woman. He said I wasn't presentable, that I embarrassed him, that his career needed someone who fit. Keisha's eyes widened. The Victoria James? The one from the TED Talk? The same one. And I want you to know something. That moment, that humiliation, that pain, it wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. How did you... Keisha wiped her eyes. How did you stop feeling broken? I didn't, not right away. I felt broken for months. But I learned that broken things can be rebuilt. And sometimes the rebuilt version is stronger than the original. Victoria pulled out a program brochure. Bridge International offers job training, counseling, financial literacy classes, and a support community. We also connect you with legal resources, housing assistance, and professional mentorship. I can't afford. Everything is free or sliding scale, because I remember having $43 and thinking that was the end. It wasn't, and your situation isn't the end either. Keisha started crying, big, gasping sobs. I thought I was alone. You're not alone. Not anymore. As Victoria held this stranger who was really herself 3 years ago, she understood the full circle her life had made. She'd been saved so she could save others. She'd been broken so she could help rebuild. She'd survived so others would know they could too. The Bridge International Boston launch event was held at a hotel downtown. Coincidentally, the same hotel where Patrick's wedding reception had been held. Victoria had chosen it deliberately. Are you sure about this? G1 asked as they got ready in their hotel suite. Positive. Victoria adjusted her dress, a custom emerald gown that celebrated every curve. You're terrifying when you're determined, you know that. She grinned. Good. The ballroom was packed with donors, community leaders, press, and clients from the soul centers who'd flown in to support the launch. Victoria stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. And there, in the back, she saw him. Patrick. He looked older, smaller somehow. Next to him was a woman Victoria didn't recognize. Younger, thinner, blonde. His new girlfriend, presumably. Their eyes met across the room. Patrick looked away first. Victoria smiled. Good evening, she began. 3 years ago, I was humiliated in a room very much like this one. The man I loved told me I wasn't enough, that I embarrassed him, that his career needed someone more presentable. The room went quiet. I could see people shifting uncomfortably. Some of them had probably been at that wedding. I thought that moment would destroy me, and for a while it did. I flew halfway around the world to escape. I cried myself to sleep for months. I questioned everything about myself, my worth, my value, my right to take up space. Victoria's voice strengthened. But then something happened. I stopped running from myself and started running towards myself. I stopped seeking validation from people who couldn't see my value and started seeing it myself. Victoria clicked to show pictures from Bridge International's work. Women smiling, succeeding, thriving. Bridge International exists because I learned that our worst moments don't have to define us. They can refine us. The pain that almost destroyed me became the foundation for helping hundreds of others. Victoria looked directly at Patrick. To anyone who's been told they're not enough, you are. To anyone who's been made to feel small, you're not. To anyone who's been humiliated and broken and left behind, you will rise. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but you will rise. The applause was thunderous. After her speech, donors lined up to pledge support. Community members thanked her with tears in their eyes. The press requested interviews, and Patrick approached. Victoria? His voice was small. Can we talk? G1 tensed beside her, but Victoria squeezed his hand. It's okay. She followed Patrick to a quiet corner. I saw your TED Talk, Patrick said without preamble. I read the articles. I've been following everything you've built. Why? Because I needed to see what I destroyed. No, what I tried to destroy. He looked at her, really looked at her. You were always extraordinary, Victoria. I just wasn't secure enough to see it. I know. He blinked. You know? I know I was always extraordinary. It took me a while to learn it, but I know now. And I know that you telling me I wasn't says everything about you and nothing about me. I'm sorry. I'm deeply sorry for what I did to you. I appreciate that. But Patrick, she leaned closer, I don't need your apology. I don't need your validation. I don't need anything from you at all. I forgave you a long time ago, not because you deserved it, because I deserved peace. I heard about Amanda, about the baby. I was a terrible husband to her too. Yes, I know. She works for me now. She's thriving, by the way. She and her daughter. Patrick flinched. I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse than that. But I'm not interested in revenge, Patrick. I'm interested in building something meaningful. You're just not part of that equation anymore. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Patrick, the woman you're with now, she deserves better too. Maybe try actually seeing her instead of what she can do for your image. Victoria walked away without looking back. G1 was waiting with champagne. How do you feel? Free, Victoria said. Finally, completely free. They toasted, surrounded by the community they'd built, in the room where Victoria's old life had ended, and her new life had truly begun. The wedding was small, intimate, just close friends and family in a garden in Seoul. Victoria wore emerald green, of course. Ji-won couldn't stop crying. I'm marrying the strongest woman I've ever known, and I promise to spend every day earning the privilege of standing beside her. I'm marrying my partner, not my savior, not my project manager, but my equal, someone who sees all of me and loves all of me, someone who lets me be free. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in cheers. Mio and Dee-hun were crying. Amanda was crying, her toddler daughter babbling happily. Keisha was there from Boston, crying too. You know what I love about this? Ji-won whispered as they danced their first dance. What? I thought I was rescuing you 3 years ago, but really, you rescued me. You taught me what strength actually looks like. We rescued each other, Victoria corrected. But more importantly, we learned to rescue ourselves. I love you, Mrs. Kang. I love you too. But it's Ms. James Kang, if you don't mind. He laughed. I wouldn't have it any other way. Victoria stood at Incheon Airport, watching a young woman struggle with her suitcase. The woman was crying, trying to hide it, clearly lost. Excuse me, Victoria approached gently. Do you need help? The woman looked up. Brown skin, natural hair, tear-stained face. So familiar it hurt. I'm fine, the woman said automatically. I don't think you are, and that's okay. Victoria smiled. I'm Victoria. What's your name? Maria. Maria, I'm going to ask you a strange question, and I want you to answer honestly. Are you running from something or toward something? Maria's face crumpled. Running. My boyfriend, he cheated on me with my sister at my birthday party, and everyone knew except me. Victoria's heart broke and soared at the same time. Another one. Another woman who needed to know she'd survive. How much money do you have? Maybe $60? I just bought the cheapest ticket I could find. Do you have anywhere to stay? No. Victoria pulled out her card. I run an organization that helps women in your situation. We offer housing, job placement, counseling, free of charge. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because 3 years ago, I was you. Different details, same pain. And someone helped me when I had nothing. Now I help others. Maria stared at the card. Bridge International? You've heard of us? I saw your TED Talk on the plane. That's actually why I came to Seoul. I thought maybe you could rebuild your life. Maybe I could too. Victoria felt tears welling up. You can, and you will. But Maria, you don't need me to save you. You just need support while you save yourself. Will you show me how? I'll walk with you. The saving part, that's all you. As they walked through the airport together, Victoria caught Ji-won's eye. He was waiting by the exit, patient as always. He smiled at her. Pride and love and understanding all mixed together. Because this was who Victoria James Kang had become. Not a woman who needed saving. Not a project or investment or rehabilitation case. A woman who'd been broken and rebuilt herself. A woman who'd learned her worth when everyone else said she had none. A woman who turned her pain into purpose. A woman who was extraordinary, not despite who she was, her race, her past, but because of her strength, her resilience, her refusal to let the world tell her who she was. She chose herself, and in doing so, she'd shown countless others that they could choose themselves too. That night, lying in bed with Ji-won, Victoria thought about the journey, from Boston to Seoul, from broken to whole, from lost to found. What are you thinking about? Ji-won asked. How grateful I am. For what? For Patrick humiliating me. Really? Ji-won raised an eyebrow. Really? Because if he hadn't broken my heart, I never would have found my strength. If he hadn't told me I wasn't enough, I never would have discovered that I was always enough. If he hadn't let me go, I never would have learned to fly. She turned to face him. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing. You just can't see it later. I'm grateful for my manipulation then too, Ji-won said quietly, because it made me face who I was, made me become who I needed to be. We're both grateful for our pain. We're grateful for what it taught us. Victoria smiled in the darkness. You know what the best part is? What? I don't need you. I don't need Bridge International or success or validation or anything except myself. But I choose you anyway. Every single day I choose you. Not because I need you, but because I want you. That's the best gift you could ever give me, Ji-won whispered. Your choice. They fell asleep, tangled together. Two broken people who'd learned to heal themselves and found love in the process. And somewhere in Boston, Keisha was starting her own nonprofit. In Seoul, Maria was attending her first Bridge International orientation. In Lagos, a woman had just watched Victoria's TED Talk and booked a flight. The ripples spread outward, touching lives Victoria would never know. Because that's what happens when you choose yourself. You light a path for others to follow. The end. Victoria James Kang's story reminds us that our worst moments don't define us. Our response to them does. That real love doesn't require you to shrink, but celebrates you for expanding. That you don't need saving, you need support while you save yourself. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, please subscribe to Love Intention. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are enough exactly as they are. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what part of Victoria's journey resonated most with you. Remember, you are extraordinary, not despite who you are, but because of it. Choose yourself, always.